A millionaire walks into a clinic, and within seconds, the world witnesses something no one should ever see, a man striking his pregnant wife in public. But what happens next will leave you speechless, because her father isn't just anyone. He's one of the most powerful hospital owners in the country, and when he sees the viral video, he doesn't call the police. He declares war. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's about power, guilt, and how far a father will go to protect his daughter. But trust me, by the end, you won't know who really won. If you love intense stories with shocking twists and emotional payoffs, hit like, drop a comment on what you'd do if you were her father, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The security camera footage would later be viewed 94 million times. Black and white, timestamp in the corner. A pregnant woman sitting in a clinic waiting room, one hand resting on her swollen belly. A man in an expensive suit storming through the door, yelling, grabbing, and then the slap that echoed through the small space like a gunshot. But that comes later. On this Tuesday morning in Boston, Dr. Emma Blackwell arrived at the Serenity Women's Health Clinic 15 minutes early for her prenatal appointment. 7 months pregnant, exhausted from a night shift at the free clinic where she worked, she barely had energy to fill out the intake forms. The receptionist smiled at her. "Dr. Blackwell, always good to see you. How are you feeling?" Emma forced a smile. "Tired, but the baby's active, so that's good." "Your husband called earlier, said he might stop by." Emma's smile faded. "I didn't ask him to come." The waiting room was small but comfortable. 6 chairs arranged around a coffee table covered in parenting magazines. 2 other patients sat quietly, scrolling through their phones. The air smelled faintly of lavender and antiseptic. Emma's phone buzzed. Another text from Marcus, the 15th that morning. "We need to talk." "Answer your phone. This is important." She silenced it and closed her eyes. If she could just get through this appointment, maybe she could go home and sleep for a few hours before her next shift. Working at the Boston Metro Clinic didn't pay much, $75,000 a year compared to the $300,000 she could make at her father's hospital, but at least she could help people who actually needed it. Her father, William Blackwell, hospital mogul, the man she hadn't spoken to in 10 years. The door to the exam room opened. Dr. Martinez, her obstetrician, stepped out with a warm smile. "Emma, ready?" The ultrasound showed a healthy baby girl. Strong heartbeat, good movement, everything looked perfect. "She's a fighter," Dr. Martinez said, wiping the gel from Emma's belly. "Just like her mom." Emma stared at the screen, watching the tiny form move and stretch. Grace. She'd already decided on the name. Grace Blackwell. No Sterling. She hadn't told Marcus yet. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said quietly. "About stress. Does it affect the baby?" Dr. Martinez's smile faded. "Emma, is everything okay at home?" "It's fine, just work stress. You know I'm here if you need to talk, about anything." Emma nodded, not trusting herself to speak. How could she explain that her husband of 5 years had become someone she barely recognized? That he looked at her with resentment instead of love? That she'd started sleeping in the guest room because his moods had become so unpredictable? She got dressed and returned to the waiting room. That's when Marcus arrived. He looked disheveled, his usually perfect hair uncombed, his tie loose. But it was his eyes that made Emma's stomach drop. They were wild, furious. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "You canceled your appointment." His voice was loud enough that the receptionist looked up in alarm. "What appointment?" "The one with your father's hospital. The tour, the network demo I've been trying to arrange for 2 years." Emma's heart sank. "I never agreed to that." "You're his daughter," Marcus was shouting now. The other patients in the waiting room stared. "Do you know what that contract would mean? Do you have any idea what you've cost me?" "Marcus, please. Let's go outside and talk about this." "I'm done talking." He grabbed her wrist, his fingers digging into her skin. "You're going to call him us today, right now, and you're going to fix this." "I haven't spoken to my father in 10 years. I'm not calling him. After everything I've done for you, I married you." Emma tried to pull away. "Let go. You're hurting me." "You're so selfish. Do you know that? You walk around acting like you're better than everyone because you work at that pathetic clinic. But you're nothing without me. Nothing without your father's name. The receptionist was standing now, phone in hand. Sir, you need to leave. Marcus whirled on her. Shut up! This is between me and my wife. Marcus, please. Emma's voice was shaking. The baby. Something in his face changed, a flash of rage so intense it made her step back. The baby? You've been using that excuse for 7 months. You trapped me with this pregnancy. What are you talking about? You think I wanted to be tied to you forever? You're nothing. You were supposed to be my ticket to your father's network, and instead you're just dead weight. The entire waiting room had gone silent. Even the receptionist stood frozen, unsure what to do. Emma felt tears burning her eyes. Marcus, I'm carrying your child. Are you? His voice was venomous. Or is it some doctor you work with? How do I know it's even mine? The words hung in the air like poison. Emma's voice came out barely above a whisper. How can you say that? Because you've given me nothing. 5 years of marriage, and what do I have to show for it? A wife who works at a free clinic and a father-in-law who won't even acknowledge I exist. That's because I don't speak to him. I told you that from the beginning. Then maybe you married the wrong man. Marcus grabbed her arm again, harder this time. You're going to call him. Today, or I swear to God, Emma, let go of me. She tried to pull away. His grip tightened. She pulled harder, and then his hand flew up. The slap connected with her cheek with such force that her head snapped to the side. She lost her balance, stumbling backward. Her hip hit the arm of a waiting room chair. She crashed to the floor, the chair tipping over with her. Pain exploded across her face. Blood immediately began streaming from her nose where it had hit the chair's metal arm. Her hands instinctively went to her stomach as a sharp cramp seized her. The baby. Oh God, the baby. The waiting room erupted into chaos. The receptionist was screaming. One patient, an elderly woman, was already on her phone recording. Another patient rushed to Emma's side. Dr. Martinez burst through the exam room door. Emma, don't move. Marcus stood frozen, staring at his hand as if it belonged to someone else. I didn't mean... She provoked me. You all saw. She... Get out! Dr. Martinez dropped to her knees beside Emma. Someone call 911. The clinic's security guard, a retired cop in his 60s, appeared from the back office. Sir, you need to leave, right now. This is a misunderstanding. Marcus's voice had changed. The rage was gone, replaced by panic. We were just arguing. It was an accident. I got every second on video. But yo, the elderly woman said, holding up her phone. I already called the police. They're on their way. That's when Marcus ran. He pushed past the security guard and out the front door, leaving Emma bleeding on the floor of the clinic. Dr. Martinez pressed her stethoscope to Emma's belly. Emma, can you hear me? Stay still. I need to check the baby's heartbeat. Emma could barely speak through the pain and terror. Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay. Her heart rate is elevated, 170. That's too fast. We need to get you to a hospital. The paramedics arrived within 5 minutes. They loaded Emma onto a stretcher, checking her vitals, asking questions she could barely answer through her tears. Ma'am, which hospital? One of the paramedics asked. Closest trauma center is Mass General. Not Blackwell Memorial, Emma managed to say. Anywhere but there. Dr. Martinez climbed into the ambulance with her. Her father is William Blackwell. The paramedic's eyes widened. The William Blackwell? The hospital CEO? Please don't tell him, Emma whispered. Please don't let my father find out about this. But outside the clinic, a news van was already pulling up. A reporter was setting up in front of the building, camera crew in tow. And inside the ambulance, Emma felt another sharp cramp, this one worse than the first. My stomach, she gasped. Something's wrong. The paramedic's expression changed. He grabbed the radio. Dispatch. We need OBGYN standing by. Possible placental abruption. 30-year-old female, 30 weeks pregnant, assault victim, blood pressure 160/95 and climbing. Emma closed her eyes as the ambulance raced through Boston traffic. Sirens wailing. All she could think about was the baby. Grace. Her daughter, who was supposed to be born in 10 more weeks. Not now, not like this. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a thought she'd been pushing away for 10 years surfaced with crystal clarity. She needed her father. The video hit social media 3 hours after the assault. The elderly woman from the clinic posted it to Twitter with a simple caption. "This happened today at my doctor's office. This man hit his pregnant wife in front of everyone." Within an hour, it had 10,000 retweets. Within 3 hours, 3 million views. By evening, the number would climb to 12 million. The footage was clear despite the phone's shaky camera work. Marcus Sterling grabbing Emma Blackwell, Emma trying to pull away, the argument, and then the slap, so vicious that the sound came through clearly on the video's audio. Someone identified Marcus from his LinkedIn profile within 30 minutes. His company, Sterling Tech Solutions, was tagged. Then someone else found Emma's connection to William Blackwell, and the story exploded across every news outlet in New England. Tech CEO assaults pregnant wife at medical clinic, daughter of hospital mogul William Blackwell. Violence at women's clinic, Marcus Sterling, named in viral assault. Blackwell dynasty in crisis as estranged daughter becomes victim. Every article made sure to mention that Emma and her father had been estranged for over a decade. Some speculated about the reasons. Others focused on the assault itself. But all of them included the same video, playing on loop, the moment of violence captured forever. At Mass General Hospital, Emma lay in a trauma bay, hooked up to monitors, while doctors worked to stabilize her and the baby. The fetal heart rate had finally started to come down, but it was still too high. 140 instead of the normal 120. "We need to keep you overnight for observation," the attending physician told her. "Any more stress and we might have to deliver early. Your baby's not ready for that yet." Emma nodded numbly. Her face throbbed. Her nose had been packed to stop the bleeding. Bruises were already forming on her cheek and jaw. A nurse brought her phone back, retrieved from her belongings. Emma unlocked it to find 347 notifications, text messages, missed calls, emails, and social media alerts that kept multiplying by the second. She opened Twitter and immediately wished she hadn't. The video was everywhere, her face, Marcus's rage, the fall. People she'd never met were dissecting every second of the footage, analyzing the assault from every angle. "He should rot in prison. That poor woman, the baby, I can't stop thinking about that baby." And then the comments that made her stomach turn. She must have done something to provoke him. Why didn't she just leave? Gold digger probably trapped him with the pregnancy. Emma closed the app and set the phone face down on the hospital bed. That's when she saw him. William Blackwell stood in the doorway of her room. 77 years old, but still imposing in his tailored suit and silver hair. For a moment, neither of them moved. 10 years of silence stretched between them like a chasm. "Emma," his voice was hoarse, "get out." "I saw the video. I came as soon as I could." "I said get out. I don't want you here." He stepped into the room anyway, and Emma saw something she'd never seen before in her father's eyes. Fear. "Is the baby okay?" "How did you even know it's a girl?" William looked away. "I've been getting updates, monthly reports, for 10 years. Emma stared at him, trying to process this. "You've been spying on me?" "Not spying, just making sure you were safe." He moved closer to the bed, his eyes fixed on the fetal monitor. "I know you work at the free clinic. I know you make $75,000 a year when you could make $300,000 at my hospital. I know your husband has been having an affair with his vice president. I know he's been verbally abusive to his staff for 2 years. I know everything, Emma, because you're my daughter, and I never stopped watching. If you knew all of this, why didn't you do something? Because you told me to stay out of your life. The day you discovered the truth about your mother's death, you made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with me. I respected that." His voice hardened, "But he put his hands on you. On my grandchild. That changes everything." "Dad." "No." William pulled a chair to her bedside and sat down. "You don't get to send me away again. Not this time. That man nearly killed you today. He nearly killed my granddaughter. And I'm going to make sure he never gets the chance to hurt you again." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "I don't want revenge. I just want my baby to be safe." "You'll have both." The room's phone rang. A nurse answered it, then held it out to Emma. It's the district attorney's office. Emma took the phone with shaking hands. Hello? Miss Blackwell, this is District Attorney Richard Patterson. I've seen the video. We're charging your husband with assault and battery. He's being arrested as we speak. Will he go to jail? With that video, absolutely. He's looking at 3 to 5 years minimum. We'll make sure he never hurts you again. When Emma hung up, she felt a weight lift from her chest. They're arresting him. I know, William said. I made some calls, expedited the paperwork. You what? Justice is slow, Emma, and justice is never enough. He stood looking down at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. The arrest is just the beginning. By the time I'm done with Marcus Sterling, he'll wish he'd never heard the name Blackwell. Dad, you can't just... But William was already on his phone, walking out into the hallway. Emma could hear him speaking in low, clipped tones. Cancel every contract. Blacklist Sterling Tech from every hospital in our network. I want it done tonight. File a civil suit. $50 million. I don't care if he's not worth that much. Bankrupt him. Press conference tomorrow morning. We're establishing the Grace Blackwell Foundation. $25 million endowment. Make sure every outlet knows why. Emma lay back against the pillows, exhausted and overwhelmed. The fetal monitor beeped steadily beside her. 1:30. Still too fast, but better. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling the baby move. It's going to be okay, she whispered. I promise Grandpa's going to make sure we're safe. The words felt strange in her mouth. Grandpa. She hadn't thought of her father in that role before. Hadn't allowed herself to imagine him holding her baby, teaching Grace to ride a bike the way he'd once taught Emma. But as she drifted off to sleep, the last thing she thought about was how Marcus had looked at her in that clinic. The rage, the hatred, the way he'd called her nothing. And she thought about her father's voice on the phone in the hallway. You hurt my daughter. I'm going to destroy your world. Maybe just this once she'd let him. By the time Emma woke the next morning, Marcus Sterling's world was already collapsing. The first blow came at 6 in the morning when Sterling Tech's biggest client, Blackwell Medical Network, sent formal termination notices. 7 hospitals, 70% of Sterling Tech's revenue, gone in a single email. The second blow landed an hour later when 3 other hospital systems, all with CEOs who'd received calls from William Blackwell, sent similar notices. Upon review of recent events, we've decided to pursue alternative vendors. By noon, Sterling Tech's stock had dropped 40%. By evening, the board of directors would call an emergency meeting to discuss removing Marcus as CEO. But Marcus didn't know any of this yet. He was in a holding cell at the Boston Police Department, waiting for his arraignment on assault and battery charges. Emma learned all of this from her hospital room television, which seemed to be showing nothing but coverage of the assault. Every channel had the video, every anchor had an opinion. This is what domestic violence looks like, folks. It doesn't always happen behind closed doors. The question everyone's asking is why Emma Blackwell stayed with him. Sources say this isn't Marcus Sterling's first violent incident. We're hearing reports of previous complaints. That last one made Emma's blood run cold. Previous complaints? How many other women had Marcus hurt? William returned to her room at 8 in the morning, carrying coffee and looking like he'd been up all night. He probably had been. How are you feeling? He asked. Tired. The baby's heart rate finally came down to normal. Good. He set the coffee on her bedside table. I brought you decaf. I know you're not supposed to have caffeine. The gesture was so unexpectedly thoughtful that Emma felt her throat tighten. Thank you. Emma, there's something you need to know. Marcus is going to be released on bail this afternoon. What? But you said... The DA is prosecuting, but bail is different. He'll be out until the trial. William sat down in the chair he'd occupied the night before, which is why I need you to agree to something. What? A restraining order and a civil lawsuit for $50 million. $50 million? Dad, his whole company isn't worth that much. I know, that's the point. William's voice was cold in a way Emma had never heard before. I'm not trying to get money from him. I'm trying to bankrupt him. Strip away everything he's built. Leave him with nothing. That seems excessive. Does it? He nearly killed you. He nearly killed Grace. You think a few years in prison is enough? Emma looked down at her hands. I don't know what I think anymore. Then let me think for you. Just this once. William leaned forward. I failed you when your mother died. I chose the hospital's reputation over the truth. I chose business over family. And I lost you because of it. I can't undo that, but I can make sure Marcus Sterling never hurts you again. So please, Emma, let me do this. She studied her father's face. He looked older than she remembered, more tired. The silver in his hair had spread, and there were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 10 years ago. But his eyes were the same, sharp, intelligent, and right now full of something that looked like regret. Okay, she said quietly, do what you need to do. William nodded and stood. I have a press conference in an hour. You should probably watch it. The press conference was broadcast on every major news channel. William Blackwell stood at a podium in front of Blackwell Medical Network headquarters, flanked by his executive team. A crowd of reporters shouted questions, but he held up his hand for silence. Good morning. I'm here to announce the establishment of the Grace Blackwell Foundation, a $25 million endowment dedicated to domestic violence prevention and survivor support. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled notes. Yesterday, my daughter Emma was assaulted by her husband at a medical clinic. She could have died. Her daughter, my granddaughter, could have died. I will not stand silent while men like Marcus Sterling walk free. William's voice grew harder. I'm calling on every hospital CEO in America to join me in taking a stand. Blacklist abusers. Refuse to do business with companies led by violent criminals. Money talks, and it's time we used it to protect victims instead of protecting predators. Dr. Blackwell, a reporter shouted, isn't this personal? You're destroying your son-in-law's company. William's expression turned to ice. He's not my son-in-law anymore. He's a criminal who nearly killed my daughter. And yes, it's personal, because violence against women should always be personal. Thank you. He walked away from the podium without taking further questions. The clip went viral within minutes. In her hospital room, Emma watched with tears streaming down her face. Her father, who'd been so controlled and distant her entire life, had just gone on national television and declared war. For her. A nurse came to check her vitals. Your father's quite something, she said with a smile. Yeah, Emma managed. He is. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, somehow sent despite the restraining order. Your father is destroying me. Are you happy now? You've ruined everything. Emma blocked the number and handed her phone to William when he returned. He's still trying to contact me. William's jaw tightened. That's a restraining order violation. I'll make sure the DA knows. He pocketed her phone. You need to rest. The doctor said they want to keep you another night for observation. I can't afford another night here. I don't have insurance through the clinic. It's taken care of. Dad, I can't let you, Emma. William sat back down, his voice gentle. Please, let me help. You're carrying my grandchild. You're all the family I have left. Just let me help. Emma closed her eyes. She was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being strong. Tired of pretending she didn't need anyone. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Brian. Over the next 72 hours, Marcus Sterling's life fell apart in real time. Sterling Tech's board voted to remove him as CEO, citing the assault and conduct unbecoming of leadership. 3 major investors pulled their funding, citing the bad publicity in William Blackwell's public call to action. The Securities and Exchange Commission opened an investigation into Sterling Tech's finances after William's legal team filed a complaint alleging hidden material facts from investors. Every hospital system in New England and most on the East Coast sent termination notices. Marcus's company went from a $50 million valuation to essentially worthless in under a week. But William wasn't done. 3 days after the assault, a woman named Jessica Hart walked into William's office. Emma's father told her about the meeting later that afternoon. Marcus's mistress came to see me, William said, standing by Emma's hospital window. She'd been moved to a private room with a view of the Boston skyline. His mistress? I knew about the affair, but she's pregnant, 3 months, and she has information you need to hear. Emma's stomach dropped. She's pregnant. Yes, but that's not the worst of it. She brought me evidence that Marcus has been embezzling from his own company. $3 million in offshore accounts. She has all the bank records. Why would she give that to you? Because Marcus is broke now, and she's pragmatic. She wanted $2 million for the evidence. I agreed, but with conditions. Emma turned to look at her father. What conditions? The money goes into a trust for her child. Monthly payments, not a lump sum. And when the baby's born, she relinquishes custody to me. What? Dad, you can't just take someone's baby. That child is Marcus's biological offspring, Emma, which makes them family. Grace will have a half-sibling. I won't let that child be raised by a woman who weaponizes pregnancy for money. William's voice was firm. I failed you once. I won't fail another grandchild. Emma didn't know what to say. Part of her was horrified at her father's cold calculation. But another part, the part that had been terrified and alone in that clinic waiting room, understood. What about Marcus? What happens to him now? The FBI is raiding his apartment tomorrow morning. Wire fraud charges. He's looking at 20 years in federal prison. Jesus, Dad, you're really going to destroy him completely. Yes. William turned to face her. Because he tried to destroy you, and I won't forgive that, ever. That night, Emma woke to stabbing pain in her abdomen. The monitors beside her bed screamed their alarm. Nurses rushed in, followed by the attending physician. Her blood pressure spiking, 170 over 100, fetal heart rate dropping. Page OBGYN stat. We need to deliver now. It's too early, Emma gasped. She's only 30 weeks. If we don't deliver, you could both die. William appeared in the doorway, called by a nurse. He was still in his suit despite it being 3 in the morning. Emma, you need to let them help you. The baby is going to be fine. You both are. He grabbed her hand. I promise, you're both going to be fine. They wheeled her to the operating room at a run. William scrubbed in, using his credentials as a physician to talk his way into the surgery. Emma barely registered it through the pain and fear. The anesthesiologist counted backward from 10. Emma made it to 7 before the world went dark. When she woke, the first thing she heard was crying, a tiny bird-like wail that made her heart stop and restart. My baby, she croaked. A nurse appeared beside her bed. She's beautiful, Dr. Blackwell. 3 pounds, 4 ounces, small but strong. Can I see her? Soon. She's in the NICU. Your father's with her now. William came to visit Emma an hour later. His eyes were red and his voice shook when he spoke. She's perfect, Emma. She's so perfect. She has your mother's eyes. Emma started crying. I want to see her. Tomorrow. The doctor said you need to rest tonight, but I took pictures. He showed her his phone. The images made Emma's breath catch. A tiny baby, impossibly small, lying in an incubator. Wires and tubes everywhere. But her eyes were open, alert, staring at the camera. Grace. She's a fighter, William said softly, just like her mother. Emma fell asleep looking at the photos, her hand pressed to her still tender incision, her heart fuller than it had been in 10 years. Outside her room, William made one more phone call. This is Dr. William Blackwell. I need to speak with the FBI agent handling the Marcus Sterling case. Yes, I'll hold. When the agent came on the line, William's voice was steel. I have evidence of wire fraud and embezzlement. How soon can you execute a warrant? With solid evidence? 48 hours. You'll have everything you need by tomorrow morning. Dr. Blackwell, may I ask why you're doing this? William looked through the window at his daughter, sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. Because he hurt my daughter, and I don't forgive. 6 months later, Marcus Sterling sat in a federal courtroom, facing 2 separate trials. The state criminal trial for assault and battery would come first. The federal trial for wire fraud and embezzlement would follow. Emma sat in the gallery for the state trial, holding 6-month-old Grace in her arms. The baby was small for her age but healthy, thriving despite her premature birth. She had William's sharp eyes and Emma's dark hair. William sat beside them, his hand resting protectively on Emma's shoulder. They'd spent the last 6 months rebuilding their relationship, slowly, carefully. Grace had been the bridge between them. The prosecutor was a woman named Helen Rodriguez, sharp and efficient. She stood before the jury and pressed play on the clinic video. Imami looked away. She'd seen it enough times, but she heard the gasp from the jury as the slap connected, heard the thud of her body hitting the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, Rodriguez said, This man struck his pregnant wife in a medical clinic. No provocation, no justification, just rage. Marcus's defense attorney, an expensive lawyer named Richard Walsh, tried to paint his client as a man under extreme stress. My client was facing financial collapse. His business was being systematically destroyed by his father-in-law. He snapped. It was a terrible mistake. A mistake? Rodriguez cut him off. Or a pattern? She presented evidence of 2 prior domestic violence complaints from Marcus's previous girlfriends. Both had been settled with non-disclosure agreements. Both women had agreed to testify. The first, a woman named Catherine Mills, took the stand with shaking hands. He choked me during an argument. I couldn't breathe. When I threatened to call the police, he offered me $50,000 to sign an NDA. The second, Jennifer Oakes, had a similar story. He pushed me down a flight of stairs, broke my arm, told everyone I'd fallen. Then his lawyer showed up with a settlement offer. Marcus's face turned red. He leaned over to whisper furiously to his attorney, but Walsh just shook his head. When Emma took the stand, the courtroom went completely silent. Rodriguez's questions were gentle. Dr. Blackwell, can you describe what happened at the clinic that day? Emma's voice was steady despite the tears threatening to spill. He told me I'd trapped him with the pregnancy, that I was nothing without him. Then he hit me. I fell. I thought I was going to lose my daughter. Did your husband ever express remorse for his actions? No. He texted me from jail saying I'd ruined everything, that my father was destroying him. He never once asked if the baby was okay. Walsh stood for cross-examination. Dr. Blackwell, isn't it true that your father orchestrated this entire prosecution? That he's using you to destroy your husband out of personal vendetta? Emma looked directly at the jury. My father didn't make Marcus hit me. Marcus did that himself. My father just made sure there were consequences. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, the foreperson stood. On the charge of assault and battery, we find the defendant guilty. Marcus's face went white. Walsh gripped his arm as the judge spoke. Mr. Sterling, you are sentenced to 5 years in state prison. You will serve this sentence before any federal charges are addressed. Emma closed her eyes as Grace squirmed in her arms. 5 years. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The federal trial came 2 weeks later. This time, Jessica Hart was the star witness. She walked into the courtroom 7 months pregnant, wearing a maternity dress and an expression of cold determination. When she took the stand, she didn't look at Marcus once. Miss Hart, the federal prosecutor asked, how long were you aware of the defendant's embezzlement? From the beginning, since I started working at Sterling Tech. He showed me how to hide the money, taught me the accounting tricks. And you participated in this scheme? I was paid to keep quiet, but after what he did to Emma, Jessica's voice caught. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Some things are more important than money. Marcus exploded from his seat. You lying bitch. You took the money too. You were in on it from the start. The judge banged his gavel. Mr. Sterling, control yourself or you'll be removed from this courtroom. Jessica remained calm, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. You promised to leave her. You said once the hospital contracts came through, we'd be together. But you just kept hitting her and blaming her for everything. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank statements showing $3 million moved to offshore accounts. Email chains between Marcus and Jessica discussing how to hide the funds. Testimony from Sterling ex-FO about discrepancies in the books. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. The verdict was the same. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Marcus to 18 years in federal prison to be served consecutively after his state sentence. 23 years total. Marcus sat frozen as the bailiff approached with handcuffs. He looked across the courtroom at Emma one last time. His face was hollow, destroyed. Your father did this, he said quietly. Tell him he won. Emma stood, Grace sleeping against her shoulder. No, Marcus, you did this to yourself. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Emma pushed through them with William running interference until they reached his car. How do you feel about the verdict, Dr. Blackwell? Are you satisfied with the sentence? What message does this send to other victims? William held up a hand. My daughter has no comment. Please respect her privacy." They drove in silence for several minutes before Emma spoke. "Is it wrong that I don't feel anything? I thought I'd feel relief or satisfaction or something, but I just feel, empty." "That's normal," William said. "Closure isn't always what we expect it to be. 23 years. He'll be 62 when he gets out. If he gets out, prison is dangerous, especially for men convicted of hurting women." Emma looked at her father sharply. "Dad, tell me I didn't do anything, but I can't control what happens inside federal prison." William's voice was neutral. Some problems solve themselves. They pulled up to Emma's apartment. She'd moved after the assault to a modest two-bedroom in a safer neighborhood. William had offered to buy her a house, but she'd refused. Some independence was worth fighting for. "Thank you," Emma said, "for everything. I know I haven't said it enough, but thank you. You don't need to thank me for protecting my daughter." William reached over and gently touched Grace's head. "Or my granddaughter. I'm thinking about going back to school, specializing in pediatrics instead of general practice. Grace made me realize how much I love working with kids." "I think that's wonderful." William paused. "The offer still stands, you know. There's a position at Blackwell Memorial whenever you want it." "I know, but I need to do this on my own. Prove to myself that I can." "You already have, Emma. You've proven it every day for 10 years. After William left, Emma put Grace down in her crib and sat by the window, watching the sun set over Boston. Somewhere in a federal holding facility, Marcus was beginning his first night of a 23-year sentence. Somewhere in witness protection, Jessica Hart was preparing to give birth to a baby she'd already signed away. And somewhere in this city, Emma's father was planning his next move. Because William Blackwell wasn't done yet. Emma could see it in his eyes. He had one more piece of business to finish. The mistress. The woman who'd helped destroy Marcus, but who'd also profited from the scheme. William had made her a deal, but Emma knew her father well enough now to know that he always had a backup plan. She just hoped that when it came to light, she'd be able to live with it. Grace stirred in her crib, making the soft cooing sounds that Emma had come to love. She picked up her daughter and held her close. "It's over," she whispered. "We're safe now. Your grandfather made sure of it." But even as she said the words, Emma wondered if it was truly over. Or if her father's war had just entered a new phase. 3 months after Marcus's sentencing, Jessica Hart gave birth to a baby boy. She named him Ethan, signed the custody papers William's lawyers had prepared, and disappeared into witness protection with her $2 million trust fund. William brought the baby home 2 days later. Emma stared at the infant car seat sitting in her father's living room. The baby inside was tiny, red-faced, sleeping peacefully. "This is insane," she said. "This is family." William gently lifted Ethan from the carrier. "He's Marcus's biological son, Grace's half-brother. Would you prefer they grow up never knowing each other?" "I'd prefer not to raise my husband's love child." "Ex-husband. And technically, I'm raising him. You're just helping." Emma sank onto the couch, head in her hands. "Dad, this is too much. You can't just collect babies like they're stray cats." "I'm not collecting anything. I'm ensuring that 2 children who share DNA have the opportunity to know each other, to be siblings." William sat beside her, Ethan still cradled in his arms. "When your mother died, you had no one. No siblings to share the grief with. I won't let that happen to Grace or Ethan." "What about Jessica? Don't you think she'll want him back eventually?" "The custody papers are ironclad. She signed away all parental rights in exchange for the money and witness protection." William's voice hardened. "She chose herself over her child. I'm simply ensuring the child has a family." Emma looked at the baby. He really did look like Marcus. Same nose, same chin. It made her stomach twist. "Does he have to live here with you?" "Where else would he live? You're still in that tiny apartment." "Because I refuse to let you buy me a house." "Then accept the position at Blackwell Memorial. The salary comes with housing assistance." Emma glared at him. "You're manipulative, you know that?" "I prefer strategic." William smiled slightly. "Grace is waking up. Why don't you bring her in so the 2 of them can meet?" Emma retrieved Grace from the guest room where she'd been napping. At 9 months old, she was alert and curious, grabbing at everything. When Emma brought her into the living room, Grace immediately focused on the baby in William's arms. "Bah," she said, reaching for him. Yes, sweetheart. This is your brother Ethan. William maneuvered so Grace could see the baby better. He's going to live with Grandpa, but you'll see him all the time. This is completely insane, Emma muttered. But she couldn't deny the way Grace's face lit up when Ethan wrapped his tiny hand around her finger. Over the next few weeks, Emma found herself at her father's house more and more often. William had hired a nanny, but he insisted on being involved in every aspect of Ethan's care. He woke up for the 2 a.m. feedings, he changed diapers. He read stories in the same voice Emma remembered from her own childhood. Watching him with the babies was surreal. This was a side of her father she'd never seen. The man who'd been so distant and cold her entire life was now singing lullabies and making ridiculous faces to get Ethan to smile. "You're different with them," she said one evening, watching William bottle feed Ethan while Grace played with the blocks on the floor. "I was different with you too, before your mother died." William didn't look up from the baby. "I forgot how to be soft, how to put people before business. Your mother's death taught me that everything could be taken away, so I held on tighter to the things I could control. The hospital, money, power. I lost sight of what actually mattered. And what matters now? This," he gestured to the babies. "You, family. I spent 10 years building an empire and lost my daughter in the process. I won't make that mistake again." Emma felt her throat tighten. "I'm sorry I cut you out. I was angry about Mom, but shutting you out completely was justified. I chose the hospital over her memory. Over you. You had every right to walk away." William finally looked up, his eyes tired. "I'm just grateful you're giving me a second chance." A knock at the door interrupted them. William frowned. "I wasn't expecting anyone." He handed Ethan to Emma and went to answer it. Emma heard voices at the door, one of them urgent. Then her father returned, followed by an FBI agent Emma recognized from Marcus's trial. "Dr. Blackwell, I'm sorry to interrupt," the agent said, "but we have a situation concerning Jessica Hart." Emma's stomach dropped. "What kind of situation?" "She's left witness protection, violated the terms of her agreement. We tracked her to the Cayman Islands, but by the time we arrived, she'd withdrawn $200,000 from the trust fund and disappeared again." William's expression turned to stone. "Where is she now?" "We don't know, but she left something for you." The agent handed over an envelope. William opened it and read silently. His jaw tightened with each line. When he finished, he handed the letter to Emma. "Dr. Blackwell," the letter began in neat handwriting, "you think you've won. You destroyed Marcus. You took my son. You probably feel quite proud of yourself. But here's what you don't understand. I've been playing you from the beginning. Marcus and I planned everything. The assault was bait. We knew you'd come after him with everything you had. We counted on it. The embezzlement evidence I gave you? All real, but Marcus knew I'd turn on him. It was part of the plan. See, when powerful men like you destroy people, you create martyrs. Marcus is filing appeals right now based on corrupt prosecution by victims' vindictive father. My testimony? Coerced. The evidence? Tainted. He'll be out in 5 years instead of 23. And me? I just sold my story to a publisher for $10 million. Mistress exposes medical dynasty's corruption. It'll be a bestseller. So thank you, Dr. Blackwell, for making us rich. And by the way, you can keep my son. I never wanted him anyway. He was just leverage. Enjoy your hollow victory, Jessica." Emma's hands shook as she read. "This can't be real. She's bluffing." "I don't think she is." William's voice was quiet, dangerous. "Marcus's lawyers filed an appeal yesterday, claiming prosecutorial misconduct." The FBI agent shifted uncomfortably. "Dr. Blackwell, if there's any truth to these allegations—" "There isn't. Every piece of evidence was obtained legally. Every prosecution was by the book." William's eyes were cold. "But that won't stop them from trying." "What about the book deal?" Emma asked. "Can she really publish that?" "First Amendment protects her right to tell her story." The agent looked apologetic. "Even if that story is defamatory." After the agent left, Emma and William sat in silence. Grace had fallen asleep on the floor, and Ethan dozed in Emma's arms. "They played us," Emma finally said, "from the very beginning. The assault, the evidence, all of it. We gave them exactly what they wanted." "No," William stood and walked to the window. "They underestimated one thing." "What?" how far I'm willing to go to protect my family. He turned back to face her. Jessica thinks she's won because she has money and a book deal, but money runs out. Book deals fade. What she doesn't have is what I have. Resources, connections, patience. Dad, what are you planning? Nothing illegal, nothing that will jeopardize Marcus's conviction, but Jessica violated federal witness protection. That's a crime, and I'm going to make sure she pays for it. How? William smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The same way I destroyed Marcus. Systematically, completely. She wants to play games. I invented the game she's trying to play. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma watched her father work with the same cold efficiency he'd used against Marcus. He contacted his publishing industry connections and had Jessica's book deal canceled, citing factual inaccuracies that could lead to litigation. He had forensic accountants track every dollar of the trust fund Jessica had accessed. He worked with the FBI to file federal charges for witness tampering and fraud. And then came the news that changed everything. Jessica Hart had been arrested in the Cayman Islands and extradited to the United States. She was being charged with witness tampering, fraud, obstruction of justice, and violation of federal witness protection. She was facing 12 years in federal prison. William called Emma to tell her, "It's done, she'll be sentenced next month." And Marcus's appeal? Denied. The judge found no evidence of prosecutorial misconduct. His conviction stands. Emma should have felt relieved, vindicated, but instead she just felt tired. Dad, when does this end? It already has. Marcus is in prison. Jessica is in prison. You and Grace are safe. Ethan has a family. It's over, Emma. Is it? Or are we going to spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders, waiting for the next threat? William was quiet for a long moment. Come to my house tomorrow. There's something I want to show you. The next day, Emma drove to her father's estate with Grace and discovered a construction crew working in the backyard. They were building something large and elaborate. What is this? She asked. A playground. William picked up Grace and carried her toward the construction site. With swings and slides and a sandbox for Grace and Ethan, I thought, maybe you could move in here. You and Grace. There's plenty of room, separate wing for you if you want privacy, but the kids could grow up together, as siblings should. Emma stared at the playground taking shape. You're building them a playground. I'm building them a home. Building us a home. William's voice cracked slightly. I lost 10 years with you, Emma. I don't want to lose another day. Please, move in. Let me be the grandfather I should have been. The father I should have been. Emma looked at her father holding her daughter, both of them watching the construction crew work. She thought about the tiny apartment where she and Grace lived, about the long hours at the clinic, about how tired she was of fighting everything alone. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, Dad, we'll move in. William's smile was genuine this time. Warm. Thank you. That night, Emma lay in the guest room at her father's house, Grace sleeping in the portable crib beside her. Through the baby monitor, she could hear William in the nursery with Ethan, singing a lullaby she remembered from her own childhood. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Papa's going to buy you a mockingbird. Emma closed her eyes and let herself believe, just for a moment, that everything really was going to be okay, that her father had won, that they were finally safe. But somewhere in a federal prison, Marcus Sterling was reading Jessica's letter and smiling, because they'd planned for William's countermoves too. Every single one. The game wasn't over yet. 2 years after Marcus's conviction, Emma stood in her father's study, staring at the letter that had just arrived via courier. It's from Marcus's lawyer, she said, her voice hollow. He's filing another appeal. This one's different. William looked up from his desk where he had been reviewing hospital quarterly reports. Different how? He claims a new evidence. Says Jessica can prove she was coerced by you to give false testimony, that the embezzlement charges were fabricated. That's insane. The bank records are real. The FBI verified everything. His lawyer says Jessica kept recordings. Every conversation she had with you about the deal, every promise you made, every threat. Emma's hands shook as she held the letter. Dad, if these recordings exist, if they show you pressured her into, they don't exist, because I never pressured her. Everything was voluntary. Everything was legal. But William's voice lacked its usual certainty. The doorbell rang. William's housekeeper answered it, then appeared in the study doorway. "Dr. Blackwell, there are FBI agents here to see you." Emma and William exchanged looks. This couldn't be good. The agents were polite but firm. They had questions about William's arrangement with Jessica Hart, about the custody agreement, about the terms of the witness deal. "Dr. Blackwell, we've received allegations that you coerced Miss Hart into giving false testimony against Marcus Sterling," the lead agent said, "that you threatened to take her child if she didn't cooperate." "That's completely false. She came to me with the evidence. She offered it in exchange for protection and financial security for her child." "And the custody arrangement was her idea? She didn't want the baby, said she couldn't raise a child while in witness protection." William's voice was calm, but Emma could see the tension in his shoulders. "Everything was documented by my lawyers. Every conversation was recorded for legal protection." The agents looked at each other. "You recorded the conversations?" "Of course. When dealing with someone like Jessica Hart, I protect myself. We'll need copies of those recordings. You'll have them by end of business today." After the agents left, Emma turned to her father. "You recorded everything?" "I always do when I'm making deals that could be challenged later. It's basic legal protection." William pulled up files on his computer. "Every conversation with Jessica is right here. Time-stamped, unedited. She came to me willingly. She offered the evidence voluntarily, and the custody agreement was her suggestion, not mine." "Then why is she claiming otherwise?" "Because she thinks she can create doubt, make me look like a corrupt power broker who manipulated the system." William's jaw tightened. "She's wrong." But as the weeks passed, Emma began to worry. The media had picked up on Marcus's appeal. Every day brought new headlines. Medical mogul accused of witness tampering. Did William Blackwell corrupt his son-in-law's prosecution? Appeals court to review Sterling case amid coercion claims. Public opinion began to shift. Some people who supported William initially started questioning his methods. Articles appeared analyzing his aggressive destruction of Marcus's company, his manipulation of the legal system, his custody grab of Jessica's baby. Emma read one particularly harsh op-ed at the kitchen table while Grace and Ethan played nearby. "He acted like a mob boss," the article stated, "using his wealth and power to crush anyone who hurt his daughter." Yes, Marcus Sterling deserved punishment, but did he deserve to have his entire life systematically destroyed by a vindictive father-in-law with unlimited resources? "Stop reading that garbage," William said, taking the tablet from her hands. "It's all noise." "It's not just noise when the appeals court agrees to hear his case. They're required to hear appeals. Doesn't mean they'll overturn anything." But Emma could see the strain on her father's face, the dark circles under his eyes. He'd aged visibly over the past few weeks. The appeals hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, William's legal team worked around the clock reviewing every aspect of the original prosecution. "We need to be prepared for anything," William's lead attorney told them during a strategy meeting. Jessica's testimony was crucial to the embezzlement case. If the court believes she was coerced, they might throw out that conviction. "But the recordings," Emma started, "will help. But recordings can be interpreted different ways. A jury might hear you negotiating. The appeals court might hear you manipulating." "Then we need more," William said. "What else do we have?" The attorney hesitated. "There's one thing we haven't used yet. Jessica violated witness protection. She contacted Marcus from a restricted location. That's federal. But if we go after her on that, she claims harassment, says you're still manipulating the system to hurt her. So we're stuck." Emma felt her frustration building. "She gets to lie and we can't even defend ourselves without looking like bullies." "Not stuck," William said quietly. "We just need to be smarter." He made a phone call. Emma couldn't hear what he was saying, but she saw his expression change from determined to satisfied. When he hung up, he was smiling. "I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." "What is it?" "We let Jessica think she's winning. We don't fight the harassment narrative. Instead, we leak to the press that I'm stepping down from Blackwell Medical Network, that the stress of the legal battles is too much, that I'm retiring to spend time with my grandchildren." But that makes you look guilty. Exactly. Jessica will get confident, overconfident. And when people get overconfident, they make mistakes. Dad, this is your legacy. You can't just walk away from, my legacy is you, Grace, Ethan. The hospital is just a building. William stood and walked to the window overlooking the playground he'd built. Both children were outside with their nanny, Grace pushing Ethan on a swing. I spent my whole life building an empire and lost my daughter in the process. I won't make that mistake again. The retirement announcement made national news. Reactions were mixed. Some praised William for finally prioritizing family. Others saw it as an admission of guilt. But the most important reaction came from Jessica Hart herself. She agreed to an interview with a major news magazine. Emma and William watched it together from the living room. Dr. Blackwell claims he has recordings of our conversations, Jessica said to the interviewer. But I have recordings too, and mine tell a very different story. He threatened me, told me if I didn't cooperate, he'd make sure I never saw my son again, that he'd ruin me the way he ruined Marcus. Do you have these recordings with you? Jessica smiled. I'm not here, but they're safe. I've given copies to Marcus's legal team. The appeals court will hear them soon. And what do you say to people who claim you're lying, that you're trying to profit from this situation? I say look at the facts. William Blackwell destroyed Marcus's company within days of the assault. He filed a lawsuit for $50 million, more than Marcus was worth. He systematically eliminated every business relationship Marcus had. That's not justice. That's revenge. And when powerful men take revenge, innocent people get caught in the crossfire. After the interview aired, William received a call from his lawyer. The appeals court has agreed to review Jessica's new recordings. Hearing is in 2 weeks. Emma felt her stomach drop. What if she really does have something wrong, damaging? Then we deal with it. But William's voice was tight. The 2 weeks passed in a blur of legal preparations and media scrutiny. Emma barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus walking free, coming after Grace, after her. The day before the hearing, William's private investigator appeared at the house with a laptop. You're going to want to see this, the investigator said. They gathered in William's study. The investigator opened several audio files on his computer. These are the recordings Jessica submitted to the court. I had our tech team analyze them. He played the first one. William's voice, you need to give me the evidence. If you don't, I'll take Ethan and you'll never see him again. Emma's blood ran cold. Dad, that sounds... Wait, the investigator said. Ufficio. He opened another program. This is the same file, but I've highlighted the edited sections. The display showed multiple cuts in the audio waveform. He played the unedited version from William's recordings. William's voice. The evidence you're offering is valuable. If this leads to Marcus's conviction, I can arrange witness protection and a trust for your child. You're asking about custody arrangements. What do you want? That's entirely up to you. Jessica's voice. I don't want the baby. I want money and safety. I want him taken care of, but by someone else. Can you make that happen? William's voice. If that's genuinely what you want, yes, but you need to be certain. This is a permanent decision. And the investigator played several more examples. Every supposedly incriminating statement from William was actually a carefully edited splice of different conversations. She fabricated them, Emma breathed. The recordings are fake. Not just fake, expertly done. The investigator closed his laptop. But fake nonetheless. Our team can prove it. The editing signatures are all there once you know what to look for. William sat back in his chair, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled. Can we have this analysis by tomorrow morning? It'll be on the judge's desk by 8 a.m. The appeals hearing the next day was short. The judge reviewed the audio analysis, listened to the original unedited recordings, and turned to Jessica Hart's lawyer with an expression of disgust. Counselor, your client submitted fabricated evidence to this court. That's not just grounds for dismissal. That's grounds for criminal charges. Jessica, sitting in the gallery, went pale. The appeal is denied. Marcus Sterling's conviction stands. All counts. Furthermore, I'm referring Miss Hart to the U.S. Attorney's Office for prosecution of evidence tampering and perjury. The judge banged his gavel. This case is closed. Outside the courthouse, Emma stood with her father as reporters shouted questions. William held up a hand for silence. Justice has been served. My daughter can finally have peace, knowing her abuser will remain behind bars where he belongs. Thank you. They drove home in silence. Emma kept expecting to feel relief, vindication, something, but she just felt exhausted. Is it really over? She asked as they pulled into the driveway. Yes, Marcus's conviction is final. Jessica is facing 12 years for evidence tampering. It's over, Emma. Inside, Grace and Ethan were building a tower with blocks. They looked up when Emma and William entered, both children smiling. Mama! Grace ran over and hugged Emma's legs. Hey, baby. Emma picked her up, burying her face in her daughter's hair. William sat on the floor with Ethan, who immediately climbed into his lap. You know what? I think I made the right decision about retiring. You're really going through with it? Already done. Board accepted my resignation this morning. Effective in 30 days. He tickled Ethan, making the boy giggle. These two are my full-time job now. Emma sat beside them, Grace still in her arms. Thank you, Dad, for everything. I know it cost you. It cost me nothing that mattered. The hospital will be fine without me. But you three, you need me. And I need you. William's voice was soft. I spent 10 years alone because of my pride. I won't waste another day. That night, after both children were asleep, Emma stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching her father adjust Ethan's blanket. He'd done the same with Grace earlier, checking on her 3 times before finally heading to bed himself. Dad, he turned, is everything okay? I forgave you. I realized I never actually said the words, but I forgive you for Mom, for the 10 years, all of it. William's eyes glistened with tears. Emma, I'm not finished. I also want to say thank you. You destroyed the man who hurt me, yes, but more importantly, you became the father I always needed, the grandfather Grace and Ethan deserve. You saved us, all of us, not just from Marcus, but from being alone. William crossed the room and pulled Emma Boehm into a hug. She couldn't remember the last time her father had hugged her. Maybe when she was 8 years old, before her mother died, before everything went wrong. I love you, sweetheart, he whispered. I never stopped. Even when you hated me, I never stopped. I love you too, Dad. They stood there for a long time, two people who had lost each other and somehow found their way back. Outside, Boston glittered in the darkness. Somewhere in that city, Marcus Sterling sat in a federal prison cell, his appeal denied, his empire gone. Somewhere else, Jessica Hart was being processed into federal custody to begin her 12-year sentence. But here, in this house, in this moment, everything was finally at peace. The Grace Blackwell Center for Family Safety opened on a crisp October morning, 2 years after Marcus's final appeal was denied. Emma stood at the podium, looking out at 300 people gathered for the ribbon cutting. Grace was 4.5 now, holding William's hand. Ethan, just turned 3, fidgeted beside them. 2.5 years ago, I was assaulted by my husband in a medical clinic, Emma began. I nearly lost my daughter. I thought that was the end of my story, but it was actually the beginning. She gestured to the 3-story building behind her. This center will provide free medical care, legal assistance, counseling, and housing support for domestic violence survivors. We're starting with capacity for 50 families. This isn't just a building. It's a promise that no one has to face violence alone. Dr. Martinez joined her at the ribbon. Together they cut through it as cameras flashed and applause erupted. Inside, the center was warm and welcoming. Comfortable furniture, soft lighting, children's play areas. Everything Emma had wished existed when she'd been at her lowest. That afternoon, back at William's house, both children demanded bedtime stories. Emma read to Grace while William read to Ethan, their voices carrying through connecting bedrooms. Mama, why do people hurt each other? Grace asked suddenly. Emma's breath caught. Some people get hurt when they're young and never learn how to be kind, so they hurt others instead. Did someone hurt my dad? I don't know, baby. Maybe. Is that why he hurt you? Emma pulled Grace close. Nothing excuses what he did. But yes, sometimes hurt people hurt people. That's why it's so important to be kind. To break the cycle. What's a cycle? When something keeps happening over and over. Your dad was hurt, so he hurt me. But I don't want to hurt you. I want to love you and keep you safe. That breaks the cycle. Grace was quiet, then said, I'm glad Grandpa stopped him. Me too, sweetheart. Later, Emma found William in his study. I got a letter today from Marcus. He wants to see Grace. William's jaw tightened. Absolutely not. His lawyer says he has the right to request visitation. Then we go to court. We show the judge everything. It'll be denied. 3 weeks later, Marcus appeared at the hearing via video link from federal prison. He looked older, thinner, graying. Your Honor, his lawyer said, my client has completed extensive therapy. He's genuinely changed. He just wants to meet his daughter. Emma stood. Your Honor, he sent me 3 letters in 2.5 years. The first 2 blame me for his conviction. This is the first time he's acknowledged wrongdoing. 2 years of prison therapy doesn't undo a lifetime of abuse. Marcus spoke from the screen. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but Grace is my daughter. She deserves to know her father. She deserves a father who wouldn't have hit her pregnant mother, Emma said firmly. You gave up that right when you raised your hand to me. The judge reviewed the file. Mr. Sterling, I've watched the assault video. What you did was brutal. You showed no remorse at the time. You blamed the victim. He closed the file. Visitation denied. You may appeal in 5 years when Grace is old enough to express her own wishes. Until then, no contact. This hearing is adjourned. Outside, Emma felt relief wash over her. 5 years. By then she'll be 9, old enough to decide for herself. That evening, Grace asked about the hearing. Emma was honest. It was about your dad, but it's okay. Everything's okay. Was it about him wanting to see me? Yes, but the judge said no. You don't have to see him unless you want to. Grace nodded, apparently satisfied. Can we have ice cream? Emma laughed despite herself. It's Tuesday. But Grandpa lets us have ice cream whenever we want. William appeared with mock dignity. It says right in the grandparent handbook, ice cream at least 3 times per week. There's a handbook? Ethan asked seriously. Very official, page 15. Both children giggled. Emma watched her father with them and felt her heart swell. This man who'd once been so cold was now inventing ridiculous rules just to hear his grandchildren laugh. Later on the back porch, Emma asked, do you ever regret it, giving up the hospital, your career? Not once, William's voice was firm. I had decades of building. Now I have story time and scraped knees and terrible jokes. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Even for Blackwell Medical Network, especially for that. The hospital was just my name on a building. This is my legacy. Grace, Ethan, you. A family that actually loves each other. Emma leaned against his shoulder. Mom would be proud. I hope so. I spent so many years being the wrong kind of strong. Thinking power meant control. I had to lose everything to learn that real strength is vulnerability. You weren't vulnerable. You destroyed Marcus in a week. That was rage. The vulnerable part was admitting I was wrong, asking for your forgiveness. That's the hard stuff. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds. I'm thinking of getting certified in pediatric trauma, Emma said. There are so many kids who witness domestic violence. I want to help them. That's beautiful. The center will manage while you train. You always support everything I want to do. Because you're important, Emma. Your dreams matter. You spent years making yourself small. I want you to take up space. Be loud about what you want. Emma felt tears perk her eyes. How did you get so wise? 70 years of mistakes and finally learning from them. He stood. Come on, let's go inside before we get too sentimental. Walking back into the house, Emma thought about her journey, from terrified victim to here, to safety, to family, to a father who'd moved heaven and earth to protect her. Marcus had taken so much, but he hadn't taken everything. He hadn't taken Grace. He hadn't taken her ability to love, and he certainly hadn't taken her father's fierce loyalty. Some battles are worth fighting, and some victories are measured not in what you destroy, but in what you build. 3 years later, Emma had finished her pediatric trauma certification. Grace was 7, excelling in school. Ethan was 5, starting kindergarten. It was a normal Tuesday when Emma's assistant knocked on her office door at the center. Dr. Blackwell, there's someone here to see you, Catherine Mills. She says she knew your ex-husband. Emma's stomach dropped. Catherine was one of Marcus's previous girlfriends who testified at his trial. Catherine looked nervous as she entered. Thank you for seeing me. Marcus has been writing to me from prison for about a year. What kind of letters? At first apologies, then they changed. He started asking about you, about Grace, about your father's health. She pulled out a stack of letters. I thought you should see these. Emma read through them, hands shaking. Marcus never directly threatened anyone, but the implication was clear. He was gathering information, planning something. This one talks about having 9 years left on his sentence, Emma said. How that's not so long to wait. How Grace will still be young when he gets out. That's what scared me most. Emma immediately called William and her lawyer. They met that evening. We need to file a restraining order modification, Sarah said. These letters show obsessive behavior. We can prevent him from writing to anyone about you or Grace. The modified order was granted within 2 weeks. Marcus's mail privileges were restricted. 3 months later, Emma received an anonymous email with a video attachment. It showed Marcus in a prison visiting room with a hidden camera. Tell Emma I'm counting down the days, Marcus said to an unseen visitor. Tell her Grace will be 16 when I get out. Old enough to hear my side of the story. You want me to threaten her? I just want her to know I'm still here, still waiting, that this isn't over. Emma forwarded the video to the FBI. The investigation uncovered Marcus had been using a corrupt guard to smuggle in a cell phone. He'd been making calls, sending emails, even posting on social media through proxies. The guard was fired and charged. Marcus lost nearly all privileges and was transferred to maximum security. His earliest parole date was pushed back 5 years. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I don't feel safe anymore, she told William, even knowing he's in prison. Then we move. Change our names if we have to, whatever makes you feel safe. I can't run from my own life. Then we make this place safer, better security, cameras. Dad, you can't protect me from a feeling. But I can try. Emma closed her eyes, then suddenly stood. No, I'm not doing this. Doing what? Letting him control me. Letting him make me afraid. And he's in prison. He can't hurt me. And I refuse to act like he can. Her voice grew stronger. When Marcus hit me, you didn't just comfort me. You destroyed him. You showed me that when someone tries to make you powerless, you take your power back. William smiled with pride. That's my daughter. Marcus thinks he can terrorize me with letters? Fine, let him try. I'm not hiding. I'm going to live my life so loudly that his pathetic attempts to scare me are just background noise. What changed? 5 minutes ago, you were terrified. 5 minutes ago, I was letting him win. I'm done with that. Emma pulled out her phone. I want to do a press interview about domestic violence, about the center, about rebuilding after trauma. I want my story out there, not as a victim, but as a survivor who refused to stay broken. The interview aired 3 weeks later. Emma sat confident in a blue dress. Dr. Blackwell, your story begins with a very public assault. I was 7 months pregnant. My husband assaulted me in a medical clinic. The attack went viral. I nearly lost my daughter. Your husband is serving 23 years. Does that give you closure? I don't believe in closure. I believe in moving forward. Marcus will spend decades in prison, but I've spent 5 years building something positive. The Grace Blackwell Center has helped over 3,000 families. That's not closure. That's transformation. Your father was criticized for using his wealth to destroy Sterling's life. Emma met the camera directly. My father did what any parent would do if they had resources. He protected his child. Marcus Sterling chose violence. My father chose consequences. Those aren't the same thing. Recently, Sterling has been attempting to contact you from prison. Sad for him, he's wasting what little life he has left trying to terrorize me. But he can't hurt me anymore. Every day I spend with my daughter working at the center, that's me winning. That's me taking my power back. The interview was watched by 10 million people. Donations to the center increased dramatically. Other survivors reached out to share their stories. And Marcus, watching from his cell, finally realized the truth. He'd lost, not just his freedom or money. He'd lost the only power he ever had over Emma, her fear. 8 years after the assault, Emma received a letter from the Massachusetts Department of Corrections. Marcus Sterling had been released early after serving 16 years. William sat across from her at the kitchen table. When? Last week. He's in a halfway house in Worcester. Does he know where you live? We've moved 3 times, changed numbers. The restraining order is still active. Grace, now 15, was in the living room with Ethan, 12. Both children were arguing about television. Does Grace know? William asked. Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. She's going to want to meet him. I know, the therapist said she's been curious about Marcus, asking questions. Emma called Grace into the kitchen. Your father was released from prison last week. Grace's eyes widened. He's out? Yes, he's at a halfway house. The restraining order means he can't contact us. But I wanted you to know. Can I see him? Emma had known this was coming. Legally, you could. You're old enough to choose, but you need to understand what he did. He nearly killed both of us. I know, but people can always change, right? Yes, but it takes real work, not just serving time. William spoke up. If you meet him, you ask him directly, not whether he's sorry. You ask what he's done to change, what therapy he's had, whether he takes full responsibility or still blames your mother and me. Grace nodded. Can I think about it? 2 weeks later, Grace requested a meeting. The therapist arranged it at her office. Marcus arrived early with his parole officer. Emma barely recognized him. Prison had aged him drastically. Gray hair, gaunt face. When Grace entered with Emma and William, Marcus stood. Grace, you look so much like your mother. Hi, Grace's voice was uncertain. They sat, the therapist between them. Thank you for seeing me, Marcus said. I know I don't deserve it. I wanted to know who my father is. Mom told me what happened. But I wanted to hear your side. There's no side that justifies what I did. I was angry and took it out on your mother, on you. I nearly killed both of you. Why were you so angry? Because I felt powerless. Your mother wouldn't help with my business. I resented her, saw her as an obstacle instead of a person. Did you want me? Did you want the baby? Marcus was quiet. Honestly, no, I saw the pregnancy as a trap. Grace flinched but held up her hand when Emma started to stand. Did you ever think about me? In prison? Every day, I would lie awake thinking about what your life was like. Whether you looked like me, whether you hated me. I knew. Mom showed me the video when I was 12. Marcus's face went white. She showed you. I asked to see it. I wanted to understand. Grace's voice was steady. Grandpa didn't want her to, but Mom said I deserved the truth. What did you think when you saw it? I thought my father was a monster. Then Mom said, hurt people, but we can choose to break the cycle. Your mother is better than I ever was. I know. That's why I'm glad she's raising me and not you. The words were devastating. Marcus's shoulders sagged. Are you here to forgive me? No, I'm here to tell you I understand what you did. But I'm also here to tell you I don't want a relationship with you. I have a grandfather who taught me what real love looks like. I don't need a father who spent 16 years learning basic human decency. Grace, Marcus reached toward her. William stood. Don't. Marcus pulled back. You're right. You deserve better than me. Grace stood. I'm glad you're sorry, but being sorry doesn't mean you get to be in my life. That's my choice. And I choose my mom and my grandpa and my brother. I choose the family that actually shows up. She walked out, Emma and William following. In the car, Grace started crying. I thought seeing him would make me understand, but he's just empty. There's nothing there. Emma pulled her into a hug. You were so brave. When they got home, Ethan was waiting. How did it go? I met him, our dad, and I decided I don't need him. Good, because you've got me, and I'm way cooler than some ex-con. Grace laughed through tears. You're 12, nothing you do is cool. I'm pre-cool. It's called potential. That night, Emma sat with William on the porch. Do you think he really changed? She asked. I think he realized what he lost, but it doesn't matter anymore. Grace saw him and chose us. She chose herself. She chose not to carry his burden. That's what I taught you, what you taught her. You did good, Dad, with all of this. I just did what any father should do, protect his family. No, most fathers would have comforted and moved on. You destroyed the man who hurt me. You rebuilt our relationship. You gave Grace and Ethan a grandfather who shows up. That's not just protection. That's love. And somewhere in Worcester, Marcus was returning to his halfway house alone. But here in this house, a family built from pain was thriving. That was the best revenge of all. 5 years after Grace met Marcus, Emma stood at Boston Children's Hospital delivering the keynote address for the national conference on pediatric trauma. She was 53 now, silver touching her dark hair. In the front row sat William, now 90, with Grace and Ethan, 20 and 17, home from college. Good morning. My name is Dr. Emma Blackwell, and 13 years ago my husband tried to kill me. The room went silent. I say that because it's true, and the story of what happened after is why I'm here. She showed slides of the Grace Blackwell Center. This center has served over 8,000 families since opening, but it didn't exist when I needed it. She clicked through programs, medical care, legal aid, counseling, housing. My father funded this center, but more importantly, he taught me that power isn't evil. It's what you do with power that matters. When I was hurt, my father used his wealth and influence to destroy my abuser. Some criticized him, said he went too far, but I'm going to say something unpopular. She looked directly at the audience. Sometimes love looks like protection. Sometimes it looks like using every resource to keep your child safe. My father didn't just comfort me. He made sure the man who hurt me faced real consequences. That gave me space to heal without fear. She showed a photo of Grace and Ethan. These are my children. Grace just finished sophomore year at MIT, studying biomedical engineering. Ethan starts senior year and wants to be a trauma surgeon. Neither has witnessed violence in their home. That's not luck. That's the result of hard choices by people who love them enough to break the cycle. She told her story. The assault, the video, her father's destruction of Marcus's empire, the trials, Marcus's release, Grace's choice. Marcus served 16 years. He was released 5 years ago. Grace met him once and decided she didn't need him. Last I heard, he's working at a warehouse in Springfield, living alone. His life isn't dramatic anymore. It's just small. And that's the real consequence, not prison, but losing access to the life he could have had. She showed her final slide. William with both children at Grace's graduation. This is what victory looks like. Not revenge, not even justice. This is love, the kind that rebuilds, that protects fiercely, that refuses to let violence have the last word. Her voice grew stronger. When you're treating child of victims of domestic violence, you're giving them tools to break cycles, to imagine futures where they're safe, where their parents use power to protect them, not harm them. She stepped back. My father is 90. He gave up his hospital empire to raise his grandchildren. People asked if he regretted it. He always says, "The hospital was just my name on a building. My family is my legacy." Thank you. Thunderous applause. William pulled her into a hug. Perfect. At dinner that evening, William said, "I've been thinking about updating my will." Emma's heart sank. "Dad, you're healthy." "I'm 90. I need to face reality." He smiled. "I'm leaving most of the money in trust for the Grace Blackwell Center." "Emma, you'll control that trust. The houses are divided among you three." "Grandpa, we don't want to talk about this," Ethan said. "I want you to understand something. Money is just paper. What I'm really leaving you is the choice I made. To choose family over empire. To choose love over power." "You're not dying," Grace said firmly. "So we're eating this meal and talking about literally anything else." William laughed. "Fair enough." On the drive home, Emma sat with her father. "You scared me with the will talk. I'm not planning on going anywhere soon, but I want you prepared. Everything I built was for this. For you three. The center will survive. I made sure of more than that. I made sure you know how to fight, how to protect yourself. When Marcus hurt you, I could have just comforted you. Instead, I showed you what's possible when you refuse to accept injustice. Some people think you went too far. Let them. My daughter and grandchildren are safe, thriving. That's all that matters." Emma leaned against his shoulder. "I used to be so angry with you after Mom died. It took years to understand you were just protecting what you loved the way you knew how. I was protecting the wrong things then. The hospital's reputation instead of her memory. But I learned, better late than never. They arrived at the house. Grace and Ethan were already arguing about a movie. Listen to them, William said softly. Normal sibling bickering. That's what I fought for, not revenge. Just the chance for you all to have normal, boring, beautiful lives. Emma watched her children through the window. Grace laughing, Ethan rolling his eyes, William smiling at them both. This was the legacy. Not money or buildings or reputation, but a family that loved each other fiercely, that protected each other, that broke cycles instead of perpetuating them. Somewhere out there, Marcus Sterling lived his small, lonely life. The empire he'd tried to build through Emma's connections had crumbled to dust. The daughter he'd never wanted had chosen to live without him. But here, in this moment, Emma had everything that mattered. Her children, her father, her purpose, her peace. She thought about that terrified woman on the clinic floor 13 years ago. If she could go back and tell her one thing, it would be this. You survive, and your father becomes the hero you always needed him to be. That night, after everyone was asleep, Emma found William in his study, looking at old photos. Can't sleep? She asked, just remembering. He showed her a photo of her mother. She would have loved them, Grace and Ethan. She would have loved who you became. I hope so. William set down the photo. I spent so many years being the wrong kind of strong. Your mother tried to tell me, but I didn't listen until I'd lost everything. You didn't lose everything. You still had me. I did lose you for 10 years, but you gave me another chance. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. Emma hugged him. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. Always have, even when you hated me. Standing there in that study, surrounded by evidence of a life well lived and lessons hard learned, Emma finally understood what her father had been trying to teach her all along. Love isn't just gentle. Sometimes it's fierce. Sometimes it fights. Sometimes it destroys what threatens you and rebuilds what sustains you. And sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to give up on each other, even when it would be easier, even when 10 years of silence stretches between you, even when the world says you should walk away. Her father had destroyed Marcus Sterling, but more importantly, he'd rebuilt himself. And in doing so, he'd shown Emma how to rebuild too. That was the real legacy, not the money or the center or even the justice. The legacy was this: a family that refused to let violence or grief or pride destroy them. A family that chose again and again to fight for each other. And that, Emma knew, was worth more than any empire her father could have built.